Okay, everybody. What we got now is a group discussion taking us through to lunch. We're on 10 past, so we still have plenty of time, although I'll try and maybe make it a 25-minute discussion so that we claim. We're joined on stage by Klaus Nielsen. Klaus, I wonder if you could tell people who you are briefly.
Yeah, I can give you a brief version. First of all, thank you for having me here.
Yeah,
my name is Klaus Nielsen. I'm coming from Green Hydrogen Systems. We are building electrolyzer equipment for production of hydrogen. Background, 13 years in wind, working for a private service provider, giving service to all the big utilities and such. And then also 11 years working with health and safety in air gas field, gas plants. So almost 30 years with health and safety background.
superb. Klaus, first question to you, of course. You've just listened to 2 excellent talks. What were the key takeaways for you?
Yeah, the key takeaways is definitely that call it the open books is needed. We need to learn from each other. We are now coming as the new, let's say, kid on the block, coming in and trying to build up our DNA when it comes to health and safety. So definitely for us it's needed that we probably not, or we will not like to make some of the mistakes from the futures, where when wind started, they wanted to go on their own, and not looking into what oil and gas have achieved during a decade, and also what from the nuclear, what they have learned as well, coming to health and safety. So for us and for me, my takeaway is that it's very important to have those knowledge sharing, so we can have a healthy environment too in this industry.
Okay, that's great. Please, questions for the floor. Obviously, this is the key part of the day. You've listened to the talks, not able to ask questions, and now you can. Okay, while you're thinking of that, I'll ask the first one of you. Very safety differently flavour there. You know, you're talking about safety as done and safety as designed. Are you familiar? How familiar are you with the safety differently movement? Are you a big fan? For me, it boils down to one simple question, which is that servant mindset, where you say, look, you know, I want you to make me lots of money. I want you to keep my company resilient and profitable, but I don't want you to hurt yourself whilst you're doing it. What do you need from me? Would your experience of safety differently, if you have it, I know you've all alluded to it, would that differ from mine? And if so, how?
Ladies first.
No, it don't. I would fully agree with you. I think it's the power is in people, and if you could allow that power to grow, I think we are enormous of what we can achieve. So I think servant leadership or humble leadership or whatever you want to call it is the way we need to foster. Also to attract young generation, because they have another way of how they were growing up. I think they don't like autocratic leadership style. Of course, they would like guidance and structure. I'm not saying that. But I think it's important to empower people to grow in a safe way.
Okay.
Yeah, the ability to act and think, definition of a strong safety culture, means that everybody chips in. There's nothing worse than saying, hey, the guy with the red hat, he's the HSE guy. Clearly, it's, you know, the question I often ask myself when I visit affiliates is, out of 100 people, how many are actually active? Writing up procedures, declaring near misses, etc. And you always find that there is not a Gaussian, but there's actually a 20% majority of actors. And that's the real challenge of management. And I've come to the position where it takes, I think, forceful management, strong HSE professionals, a bit of top-down nonetheless saying we want. I mean, you need to boost to get the full consensus. And this goes through a number of practices, but the starting point is not easy, especially with new youngsters who want other stuff.
Okay.
From my point of view, safety leadership is also the key here, that you ensure that the safety leadership is present on all levels. So it's not just going into something we say, but we actually do. Mm-hmm. Every CEO will say safety first, at hand. But it's also being said throughout the organizations on all levels. That's the importance. You have the CEO, you have a board of directors saying something, but if it's not kept on all leaders, on all levels, even on peers on the floor level, it was just vanished. KPIs was changed through the road down in the organization if we not take care.
Can I add to this? Please. Because I think I really like what you said, 50% at least, you need to be out there in the field. And from my experience, a lot of managers need to be in the office because they need to attend to their emails, they need to sit in these endless meetings and so on. So they have limited time to actually be out there. And how can you then know how work is done? And also to get that extra finer feeling for your operations, because it's also changing. So I think it's very important also to build that space, that room and for possibility for managers to actually be out. Also train them to how they then can empower and engage with the workforce and bring that into the decision making they will take later on.
And I would actually challenge him, how could you be accountable if you're not in the field? You have total distortions on all of the intermediate levels, and sometimes you have to hear it from the horse's mouth. So I think accountability is not something you delegate, but sometimes you really need to sign off yourself the permits, you need to do the safety tours with contractors that usually are beaten up, etc. And so there has to be a paradigm shift, I think, in terms of housekeeping is better in the field than on PowerPoint slides, that the contractor knows more about your company than yourself. And these are ways, I think, that would enable, I think, a better understanding.
But I'd like to ask the audience, those who are leaders, how much time do you actually have? How much in your system, in your organizational structure and daily work do you have to actually go out and speak, have a conversation, a dialogue, fostering a good shared space? How much time do you actually have? Hands on your heart.
You have to pick something.
Well, I'll turn that into an anchored question, maybe. Yeah? How many of you get time to have a good 45-minute wander around and chat with your workforce at least once a month? Could you put your hands up nice and high so we could see? How about once a week? Once a day? Okay. There's a chap called Peter McKee. He's probably the most experienced safety consultant in Europe. He used to work for DuPont. He was actually in a lift with Vernon Bradley when they came up with the Bradley curve. They were going up in a lift together. And he says that if safety is your #1 priority, shouldn't you be spending about 2 hours a day on it? Yes. Monica's clapping here. As Peter said, Irish guy. You know, because if it is our #1 priority, if nothing is more important than safety, surely that should get huge amounts of our day, shouldn't it? And I think it was about 4 people said, I've got time to go for a once-a-day talk for 45 minutes. That's not hugely encouraging.
Can I add something to that? Yeah, because what I'm seeing through my many years in working in different industries is that based on that the leaders don't have the time because they are caught behind the desk and doing desk work and reporting. And then they say, okay, we still have the safety issues, we still need to work with that one. So we just hire in, as you said as well, more HSE professionals. Then they have to take care of the safety. But suddenly it will then be the safety department carrying on the safety. So you will easily get that feeling in the organizations, why should we bother, because HSE is taking care of it.
Yeah. And so it's the balance between having something which is nonetheless top-down on simplification of rules that are more essential, but at the same time the buy-in is everybody active. But back to your point, I think my last CEO was remarkable in the sense he didn't have time, as all CEOs don't have time. But he said, I'm going to instruct that one of the pillars of reliability in refining is a 1-hour weekly tour with the plant superintendent, maintenance, inspection, 1 hour a week. I don't have time, but clearly it is very important because reliability, safety go hand in hand, etc.
Is there not the danger that the people he's delegated to pass on that delegation?
And that's the whole difficulty, Tim, about how do you have time at the highest level of the organization, and here we're saying, hey, this is important. That's the conflict. It really is a struggle. And I think, again, I'll say it, the best plants I've seen are those where the first level leaders are in the control rooms, no doubt.
Okay, excellent.
But there's no KPI for that.
Okay, we're still shy of. Because I've got my back to you. I'm sorry. It's Sean, Harry.
And that's the whole point. Sorry.
Oh.
And indeed, the three best practices I was illustrating have to do with, when you think about it, the safety green light is all about encouraging speak up. And when the COMEX say, I want to hear about the red flags and thank them, that is a tipping point to me. The life-saving checks with contractors, listening like you were doing this morning, I think this is very powerful, especially if you multiply by big numbers, you start having a lot of culture building, to me. So all of this is how, it's our duty as management and leaders to think, what are the rituals that have the most profound impact and that are well selected in a world of change which is accelerating and people get lost. So going back, the fundamentals I have described come from contractors, have been tested with BP, Shell looking outside, hence the importance of reaching out. And maybe because I've lived in other companies, I know that my company is not the smartest. That's humility, by the way, just accepting to reach out.
No, and for what it's worth, perhaps the best-selling leadership book of all time, Leoncini's book about leadership, he says really clearly, being humble is the key thing. To be humble, to work hard, to have high levels of emotional intelligence, but to be humble. And what he means by being humble is saying, I don't know all the answers. If you're interested in sport, there's a book called Captain Class, and it's all about the best leaders of sports teams over the years, and exactly the same themes come through. They don't reference each other because one's an academic book about leadership and one's a book about the All Blacks and Manchester United, as was. But they say the same thing. Richie McCaw, for example, the most successful sports captain in the history of all sports, never mind Magic Johnson, Richie McCaw says, I do what my team needs me to do. If the referee's weak, I'm all over him. If the referee's strong, I'm all over my hot-headed players making sure they behave. If we need to start a fight, I throw the first punch. I do what the team needs on the day, entirely, for the team. Cracking book, anyway. So, yeah. Okay, Brian? Okay, for those of you who can't hear Brian, what Brian said, it's the frontline leaders often can set a subculture, and I think, Harry, I forget the name of your character, but somebody charismatic and experienced in a canteen, they can set a subculture, definitely. Where is that? Oh, thanks.
I have worked in oil and gas and infrastructure business since 2007, And I am delighted to hear Xavier mention that leaders should come out in the control room. And Monica, that you talk about the shared space, listening with curiosity and all that. Because when I see, in my career, when I see leaders, it's great that leaders come out on site, beautiful. And it's not just done by getting out on site. You need to listen, you need to actually find ways to engage with the workers that you meet so that you create a mutual trust there. So they are left with, wow, he was a great guy, him I can trust. If you do not do that, you can tick off the box that you've been there twice a week, it doesn't matter. If you do not create that level of trust, you're really missing an opportunity to make a difference. So that was just that.
Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more. And a question for you. Again, the Safety Differently crowd would say the number one metric you're looking for is the quality of dialogue, two-way dialogue. Can I just check, how many of you kind of agree with that? That perhaps the most important thing for a culture is the quality of dialogue. So we've just talked about how we're not having anywhere near as much dialogue as we need, but we've all agreed that it's really important, I think. Okay. Please, another question for the panelists, please.
Over there.
Thanks. Where did you see? Oh, could you sprint safely? Oh.
Thanks. I guess you all have friends in your private life that are intelligent, knowledgeable, skilled, experienced, and you meet them in your private life, and then they might talk to you about their job, and you find out that they have to park their brains, their eager, their stamina, their readiness, their responsibility beside the coat in the entrance. I'm just puzzled about what happens when intelligent people go to work and they meet colleagues, middle management, all that culture, and they decide at some point, I don't bother saying anything because nothing matters here. I'm told to shut up and just do my job. Or, so what happens when people comes in, intelligent people, you know them in your private lives, that they're able to do things, magical things, and when they come to their work, they just shut down because the culture they meet are not rewarding, initiatives. So I think you have to look down on the floor, see what happens when people come into your companies. It's not only about leadership and telling the floor what to do and what to think, because they come as humans in the companies, and they have some of these qualifications already, and they are doing them using in their private lives. But when they come into a company and have to work for you, they just have to forget about this. Thanks.
Okay. Who wants to respond first?
I think it's important that we provide, I'm saying it over and over again, very simple tools that anyone could use. How many have been in a town hall meeting? One people is active and talking, the rest is just listening and not active, not engaged. Those meetings can easily be done through a multilog, when you have simultaneously multilogs and where you're feeding back and engage the intelligence. So people's bright side and their innovation capacity and all what they bring in could come into play, and use that time efficiently with simple tools as multilog. You just need to design it very mindfully, but it's so powerful. You could move the culture, the organization in hours if you use those kind of tools. And we need to be smarter about that. We need to create the systems, the structure, and the tools for it. And I don't think we're there yet. They are there, but we don't implement them. Okay. That's my answer.
Klaus, please.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. What I see coming from this new industry where we are, let's say, hiring a lot of people in very, very short time, going from 40 people to 250 within a few months, we see the challenge that we want to have all the smart guys, all with the good ideas, all with the intelligence guys, as you were talking about, coming in. But now we are onboarding, let's say, 200 people in that short time, coming in with their backpack on, with their skills, their knowledge, their intelligence, So how can we put them together to build up this one culture? So that for us is a challenging. So that could be some of the smart people coming in, looking down the floor and maybe not buy in, but they're coming in, but they can. So I can see for us the challenge is to get the best out of all to create our culture.
I would offer the following, Klaus, because we all want you to succeed. I mean, Esben has instructed us to make you succeed. And because at the end of the day, you are the future. But at the end, I really think it's important that onboarding is something you may want to check with other companies. How do they onboard renewables? Renewables can stay independent, or they go in JVs, or they're absorbed. But when I've seen in TotalEnergies the absorbed renewables, it's defining the 2-3 basics that just are fundamental because we, from experience, have judged you can't go around these. For example, emergency response, reporting, because otherwise you're blind, golden rules. I mean, only maybe 5. But the process is more interesting, is being able to talk in confidence with industry associations. And I do wish that your company joins the Oil and Gas Danish Association, because that is the quickest path to progress. And I've seen it myself in Total.
Okay. We're doing okay. One more question before we stop for lunch. You've got to reach the bar now. The gentleman asked a question, they've got a round of applause, so you've got to compete with that. Oh, please. Okay.
Talking about cross-collaboration between the different energy sectors and spending time on site. Have you seen, or have we been in talks between companies, contractors, and across the industries to do those site visits, say, between wind and offshore or onshore bases, just to see in practice the different safety mechanisms in place and the cultures, so that we can share that culture?
Yes. Yeah, we were working with a company that they urgently need to change their culture. They had a lot of fear. The results in their survey was not very good, and they were running into a space where they didn't want to be. So what we did, we worked with them closely, because quickly you could see that there is a gap between the different departments, and there is also some tension between those who are pushing the timelines, the projects from onshore, and then you have the OIMs and the people offshore together with their contractors that needs to implement all the projects. So we brought them on land together, and we did multi-logs together with also the contractors, the main contractors. And everybody was voiced, everybody was engaged, everybody came up together with conclusions of what they wanted to focus on. Their leaders from the contractor companies and so on was also there to listen, and then they decided together what they wanted to move forward. And it was all about safety, about communication, but also setting it up as a good shared space. So we had to create that so people will feel free. Even the person who is a contractor doing scaffolding could speak up and really talk from his heart. But you need to do it mindfully to create that environment so people really talk. And when they do, it touches everybody's heart, because we have a common goal. We all want to have it safe. So it's possible, for sure, and I'm sure you also have similar experiences.
Final comments?
Maybe yes, it's a fascinating topic. Safety training and for group leadership in TotalEnergies takes a couple of days. One of the topics are safety tours, and yes, we use actors and role-playing for that, which is quite impactful. But what I introduced, which I thought was even better, is getting group leadership contractors within. There's a gentleman from Saipem talking this afternoon. I had a few Saipem people included in the same training. So there's no difference in company, and wow, do you get perspective. And you work the same themes. And that's the best measurement for me at the highest level possible of differences of culture. Better than the field, actually, with actors, actually.
Okay. And Klaus?
Yeah,
Final
I will
words?
fully agree, and it's very important to create this culture. If you're working with the contractors, that you create this, not them and us, but a we culture, because we are in on the same topic, we are on the same case, and we want to achieve a very safe environment.
Okay. I'll stop us there because I know people want to go for lunch. Just one question for you. Are you aware that the most single biggest risk to life in the offshore industry and in the renewables industry is exactly the same? Single biggest killer. Do you know what risk factor it is? Including oil and gas, going back to and including Piper Alpha. Gravity. Falls. Falls. So there's that and so much else in common. I'm going to try and read you a poem. It's on the wall of a pub near my house in Manchester by a guy called Lem Sicey. Forgive me if I get this wrong, but I think it goes something like, from the moon to the sun, from the head to the heart, we have more in common than sets us apart. Yeah.
Very good.
I thought, it just occurred to me that was appropriate. Thank you.
Good.
It's the only poem I know. Okay, we are at 25 to, so that's great. We're not far off time. If we could be back at 1:30, I believe the next speaker is an absolute blinder.